So we live our lives now where we tell ourselves that every day will be a better day tomorrow because it's one day closer to Lola.
Lola was the feistiest, most full of life, silly, funny little baby girl in the world. She gave us so much joy and light, and I remember Chris and I would say to each other every night that she just makes everything better.
One of like the best moments ever was when Lola came out and like they wiped her off, and you see it in the videos and movies and stuff where she's all dirty and whatnot. She was so clean. She was this perfect baby, and she just smiled when she looked me right in the eyes. And I was like, wow, like our lives changed. It was amazing. It was breathtaking. And then I loved watching Lola lay on you when she came out, because she just laid there so comfortable. No crying, nothing. She just laid there. It was like almost like the most peaceful moment where the three of us had, and she was just so comfortable laying on you.
Lola hit every milestone super early. I think at 3-4 months, she was trying to sit up already. No joke.
Yeah.
She would pull herself up. At 6 months, she was full-blown crawling, pulling to stand. I literally thought this girl is a genius, because she was.
Yeah.
She blew our minds with every little trick that she did. Yes, she was just so eager to learn everything and fast. So in her short time here, she really did achieve a lot and inspired us a lot.
I remember so vividly the moments when Lola was first born. She was in the NICU for a week. She was known on the whole entire floor as the feisty one, and it gave her so much character. It embodied who she is. She would always pull everything out. The nurses would come over and try to hook things up, and she'd be pulling everything out, and she'd be like, no, we're not doing that. Lola was like a fan favorite on the NICU floor, and always just when we walked in from the night before, they would be like, you're the feisty ones, you're Lola's parents? And I'm like, hell yeah. I loved it.
So tell us some of your favorite days, moments together.
Days that the three of us just went out to the wineries for the days and just went out east. And the day that we went to the Huntington Fall Festival was one of my favorite days. It was a spontaneous trip. It was beautiful out. Lola was so happy. She would just be giggling and smiling the entire time. I have a cool video of like me like throwing her up in the air and like holding her up, and she was just smiling, full of life. And then I also loved the day that we went to the botanical gardens around Christmas time, because I remember picturing Lola. And I'm doing this because she was in the carrier, and when you had her, she would just be kicking her feet the entire time, looking at like all the lights. Those were some of my favorite moments, just seeing her so happy and just like full of life and giggling.
I think some of mine were probably like the quieter moments. At like 3 a.m, usually every night without fail, she'd wake up in her crib hungry. I'd go in there, nurse her, and I'd be like, all right, let's not tell Daddy, but we're going back in our bed. So we go in our room, and she would get pumped. It was party time. She'd wake up Chris and party at 3 a.m.
I'd be like, what's going on here? Okay, it's party time. Yeah.
So the day that she passed away, she woke up with what I thought was the stomach bug. We were with kids that whole week. It was Christmas week. It was the 28th. And I thought, okay, she has the stomach bug. I texted my sister-in-law, hey, just a heads up. Hopefully your kids don't get sick. And I knew something was up because she seemed a little bit lethargic. So I called the pediatrician, took her to the doctor, and I looked at them and I said, I have to take her to the ER, right? And they said, yeah, I think that's a good idea. So I called up Chris at work, and we met up at the hospital. At the hospital, they were trying to get an IV in her, and they were saying because she was so dehydrated at that point that it was just tough to get one in. And 45 minutes went by. It felt like forever.
Yeah.
And they hit the code button, and they intubated her.
Mm-hmm. So they intubated Lola. And that's kind of like when everything hit us. When they intubated her. We knew how serious it was. At first when we showed up, she was lethargic, but they just kept on saying, we think she's dehydrated. And when you think someone's dehydrating, you don't think it's life-threatening. So when she was intubated, we knew that our lives might change. And we eventually went up to the emergency, the pediatric emergency area. It was a very, very long night. And Lola fought for a while. She was fighting. She became septic. We were told that a bacteria leaked out of her colon into her stomach, into her belly area. And she became septic. And eventually that overcame her.
We heard the code button for the second time.
For the second time, when we were on that unit, they kind of told us, like, okay, let's get Lola stable and we'll go home the next day. We'll figure everything else out and see what's going on the next day. When we heard them press the emergency button, where all the sirens went off the second time, I knew we weren't next to her, but we knew it. Why? And I'll never forget coming out of the waiting room, going by the nurses, seeing all the nurses run. And there was just one nurse that froze. We made eye contact when I came out of the room, and I asked her, is that for Lola? And she didn't respond. And her no response let me know what was going on. And when we walked to where Lola was, being 6'4", I can see above, and there was glass, and no one else could see what was going on in the room. When we were walking, I saw them doing CPR on Lola. And then we began to pray. And then the doctors came over and told us what was going on. The doctors told us, and Mary asked, you don't think she's going to make it? And the doctors told us, we don't think she's going to make it. So Mary barged into the room and just wanted to hold her baby when they said, don't go in there. And Mary held her baby, and I was holding Mary. We held Lola in her final moments, and at 8:59 on December 28th is when Lola passed over to the other side. And became our angel baby.
So to go from celebrating Christmas with Chris's family the night before, seemingly happy, healthy, normal baby, to the next day, her being pronounced dead, it was a complete shock. And I remember just thinking, this is not happening.
This is not real.
I'm in a nightmare. And the next morning, I was just waiting to wake up. And it's kind of been the same ever since. Mm-hmm. So that night at the hospital, we left with Lola's winter coat, her diaper bag, a lock of hair that they cut for us, and a handprint painted. And we went home and we had no idea how we were going to survive this.
We didn't know what to do.
And I think it was the very next day that a friend of my sister's friend reached out to me via text, and she said, "Hi, I'm a mom who lost her baby a few years ago. I'm so sorry that you're going through this. This absolutely sucks. It's a nightmare. You're probably in shock right now, but I'm here to help. Here's a therapist that I went to. Here's a social worker who ran a group therapy. And if it weren't for her, I don't know if we would still be here today," because that text saved our lives. Finding that mental help and just having somewhere to go from here.
And leaving the hospital that night, we haven't heard from the hospital. We didn't hear from anyone at the hospital the next day.
We got a call from the pediatrician sending their condolences, but nobody professionally reached out to us to ask how we were doing.
No answers.
Which blew our mind,
Yeah.
our minds. And it was very clear and evident to us that there's something lacking in the mental health department for bereaved parents.
We left there with nothing in the sense of where do we go next. If it wasn't for a family friend in the community, we don't know where we'd be today. So leaving the hospital that night, other than Lola's personal things, as bereaved parents, we didn't know where to go. We left with nothing. Our mission, Mary and I turned to each other and we said to ourselves, we need to help others. And we didn't want to just focus on one area. We wanted to be able to help grieving parents, but at the same time, see if we can help the infant healthcare system. And then at the same time, go into the mental health capacity of grieving parents. We don't want to just focus on one area. So when Mary and I talked about it, we want to highlight some other amazing foundations out there.
There's a bunch of other foundations in the area that we found have really helped us, whether it was group therapy for the mental health aspect. We know some charities that help with the financial aspect for parents who have lost children, whether it's covering the funeral costs or paying for those services. And there's other foundations that help with the research, for example, that have to do with Crohn's and the genetics behind it. And those are some foundations that we would really like to work closely with in the future.
We're eager to help grieving parents and put them in touch with all of our resources that helped us, and then other local charities and local foundations that offer some amazing services that could help with this whole entire process.
We know how lonely that it can be when you lose a child. You never think this will happen to you. As far as you know, nobody else has experienced this. We felt like, how do we live after this? It felt like our souls have been ripped out of us. Like our whole purpose is gone. And nobody understands that feeling except for another grieving parent. And that's why we really want to help them.
We also wouldn't be here starting this foundation and without the support of my brother-in-law, Mary's brother, Howie, who helped us start the foundation as well. We cannot thank our group therapy people that are with us, on this. We call it our, almost like a nightmare journey together. It's the club that nobody wants to be in, but without them, we don't know where we'd be. Our family has been so supportive throughout this whole entire process, trying to make us feel like we're not alone.
We have our first Lola Jayne Foundation event coming up in September at Westbury Manor, which sold out in less than a week.
3 days.
Incredible.
Yeah, wow.
We thank everybody for
their support.
Helping out with that, or their support. It's going to be a fundraising event, and we're looking forward to many more in the future.
We can't thank everyone enough for following your support, and anyone that plans on donating in the future. We're all in this together.
We miss Lola so much. We think about her every second of every day, and we really hope that we're making her proud.